Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Grip Locked on the Grounds Collegiate Disc Golf
Can we
National
call it Grip Locked After Dark?
Well, this episode is Grip Locked After Dark because what we were just a part of is a collegiate disc golf tradition. They do it every year. They stopped my senior year, but they brought it back. And when they brought it back, I told the organizers, I said, one rule of us coming down here, we play guts.
We play guts.
And that's what we just did. If you don't know what guts is, it's essentially dodgeball with the Frisbee. More or less.
Pretty much.
And we lost in the semifinals. We made it to the final, technically the final three, because one team was undefeated. It's double elimination bracket.
Yeah.
So we made it to the final three, lost, came back here. So behind us is still hole 17.
We are still here.
It is just darker.
Yeah.
So we are in I just am going to go ahead and apologize to Connor when he sees this shot because he's going to cry. We're not in a good spot.
It had to be done.
But it had to be done because we need to bring you the information of day one's action that went on out here. Best weather day, really, you could have, first off.
It was
but
pretty
best
solid.
weather day that is going to happen out here this weekend.
Yeah.
It looks like the rain for tomorrow has been pushed back to the afternoon a little bit, which would be crucial.
Yeah.
But today was gorgeous, sunny. Wind picked up in the afternoon a little bit, but
it was never too crazy.
It was never too crazy.
Yeah.
Now, what was crazy is some of the scores that came in. First off, Houghton University out of New York, I believe, 68th ranked team in the country coming into this weekend. Teed off, I want to say first tee time.
Yeah.
Very early tee time, about 7:30. Put in a 16 under par out there.
Ridiculous.
Leading the tournament after day one.
Which 16 under at any course in doubles is fantastic, especially collegiate doubles, because keep in reference that collegiate doubles is actually harder than typical doubles almost always because you're only teeing off on every other hole, so you're going to get cold in between. Yeah. And so it's harder to build momentum, and it also means you have to be 4 players deep. Your team has to have 4 solid players. Nobody can drop the weight. Like if anybody is not playing well, you're going to be affected a ton. So if you want reference, they were playing the Boulders course. We've played that in a battle. I'm not sure. We played okay.
We played pretty solid.
But I'll tell you right now, we didn't shoot 16 under or anywhere close to it.
I think we might have got the double digits. But we weren't smelling 16.
Yeah, it's an incredible round, and like you said, not super high ranked team. A lot of players that whenever I mentioned to them, like they were like, yeah, we didn't really think they were a threat. Like we didn't really know anything about
another
it.
funny storyline. So I'm looking at if ratings mean anything to you. Their best player on the team, 993 rated, very solid collegiate golfer, 993 rated. Then they have a 962 guy, 942 guy, 891 guy.
Yeah.
Their 891 guy is the guy that parked 17 back here. He put it to about 15 feet.
Well, there you go. I say he must be. When I was looking through that, I was like, they must have the 891 guy must have been a wild card. It must have been on because the rest of that team is pretty solid.
Typically, like if I'm looking at this team, typically how collegiate double pairings work is the 890 guy, Tim, would have been paired with their 993 guy, Zach. Typically,
it kind of depends on backhand,
it depends
forehand.
Too about the game style, so we don't really know.
Yeah.
Number 2 team. After today, there's 2 teams tied here. Neither team's really a huge surprise name-wise. Cincinnati and Illinois State both were able to put it up 15 under pars.
Again, insane.
Again, Collegiate Nationals, doubles, it's about just staying in the race.
Yeah.
So day one, you can't win it on day one. You can lose it on day one.
Certainly.
So day one is about just keeping your name in contention.
Although a little bit different this year with some of the singles happening already.
Yes, which we'll talk about that in a little bit. But that's your top 3. Just on the outside of the top 3, one stroke outside of that, one of the most hyped up teams in the country coming into this weekend. Number 2 ranked Emporia State. They were on coverage. You'll be able to watch them on Central Coast. I believe that's going to be posted on the PDGA's YouTube page, possibly on Central Coast. Central Coast is out here filming it. So stay tuned to both of those, but as soon as the link's up, we're going to post it out on all of our social media, so you'll know where to watch it. But they filmed the number 1, number 2 team together, NC State and Emporia State. Their card. Emporia State put up a 14 under, didn't really seem bothered by the cameras. We asked on Grip Locked on Monday, are they overhyped? Because there's a lot of hype. Eric McCabe's their coach. So I was out there watching most of this. I didn't watch most of their card, but I was just kind of floating around this course. I got to see several holes. They're not overhyped.
Yeah,
every player I saw throw there looked legit. Now, rating wise, would tell you that they're overhyped. If you look at ratings, we got 978, 948, 953, 920. But this is my point of ratings. Ratings don't tell the full story.
Yeah, well, the problem too with ratings in college, and from my experience, is you have the collegiate ratings are never that good because you play in fields where you're not going to have 10, 30, or 40 rated guys because they would be playing on tour.
Yeah.
Or they would be like playing enough and making enough money the way they wouldn't qualify for collegiate disc golf. So you have lower rated fields, and the bottom end of those fields, because you have a lot of schools just trying to get people involved in the sport, is really low. So the ratings are always bad. So I've been on teams where you have guys who only really play collegiate events, and therefore their ratings are like 20 to 30 points off of accuracy. I mean, our team back in college, like we were composed a lot of times, like we were like usually like 930, 930, 960, 960. Like that's, and like we were a pretty good team.
Now I will say back then that was a very good average team.
That
was a very good rating average.
I'll tell you
it's gotten a lot better out here.
Well, and I know you mentioned this, but one of the things that I noticed and just have noticed being here is the level of college disc golf has really elevated.
Oh, it's risen to a whole new level.
These doubles, and I mean, you can see from the scores, but like you literally have to play almost perfect doubles to stay near the top of the leaderboard. Like 16, 15 under is just like ridiculous.
Yeah,
so good.
I was very impressed with Emporia State. They seem very composed the holes I watched them. I will say I think it'll be interesting to see what happens in singles. I talked to their coach, Eric McCabe. He was saying their doubles chemistry is like unmatched. He's like, when they're playing doubles, they're almost like different players.
Yeah.
They're incredible, which makes me think singles, it's going to be something to keep an eye on.
It's a different ball game for sure.
Now, coming into this weekend, number 1 ranked, NC State, one of the favorites to win out here. Slow start today. I think they ended up putting up, let me find them on this leaderboard. I believe it was a 10 under par. I'm at 11 under right here. There they are, 10 under par in 21st place.
Yeah.
Now, 10 under, 6 strokes back. That is not a big
deal. I say, what would you say the line is right now of like, are you still in it? Like I would say it's literally like 7.
Yeah, I would say, but there's 3 rounds, one of those being singles, and that's the key one.
Singles is just so wildly important.
It doesn't hold as much weight anymore with the average, but it still holds a lot of weight. So
I would say more so, the thing with singles is it's not necessarily that it's like, it's not necessarily the amount of weight it holds. It's the problem of you have to put 4 guys out there, and one of them could blow up. And if you have a single guy blow up, you pretty much lose your chances. Like you'll rarely see a team that wins nationals and they have one guy that absolutely imploded on the course.
A lot of times the team that won nationals is fielding 4 like All-Americans.
Yeah. You have to, if you're going to win a national title, you have to play well in doubles. You got to do your job in doubles, but you have to go out in the singles and have 4 guys like stay in the top 30 probably. All 4 have to be in there, and you have to have 2 guys probably in the top 10.
Yeah.
Like it is where the real emphasis comes, because now it will switch a little bit, because obviously this first round of doubles is just kind of an establishing round. You are kind of just getting going, but towards the end of the tournament, when singles is done and all that's left is doubles, then you have a little more, the dynamic changes a little bit, because now all of a sudden you know where you stand. You know there's a little bit less separation in doubles.
A lot less,
a significant amount less. So now it's, you have guys at the top that are kind of dueling with each other a lot of times, and you have people trying to chase. So then it'll become a little different.
Yeah, I would definitely say opening round, if especially some of the top teams, if you're 7, 8 under,
you just got to hang around.
You got to hang around, especially because you have the gorge coming up.
Right.
And the gorge,
so
even
crazy,
in doubles, there's going to be big swings. Last year's champion, returning national champion, Mizzou, if you will, 12 under today. Very respectable score, right in the mix. Some other notable names: Liberty University finished 2nd last year. They put up a 9 under par, so they're okay, definitely farther back than they'd like to be. That puts them tied with Ferris, another big name, in 29th, alongside Georgia, and some other big schools, Colorado Mesa, BYU, Arizona State, Appalachian State. That is where like 9 under seem to be the the common landing spot.
Yeah.
All these teams are in it. I mean, there's probably 15, 20 teams tied at 9 under.
The talent level has gotten to the point where like doubles is not going to create. Now I will say this course is significantly less separation. The gorge, like I could see a very good doubles team going out to the gorge and shooting 11 under, 12 under maybe.
Yeah.
I could also see a really good team going out to the gorge and shooting 2 under.
Yeah.
So like there will be, that's going to be an interesting test. I'm glad that there's such a difficult course for doubles, because I think it will actually provide some good separation. One thing that just kind of always look at it that can happen in nationals though is like you can get out of singles sometimes and have 1 or 2 teams like 6, 7, 8 strokes, aside.
It can. It's a lot less likely with the average, but it definitely can happen.
Yeah.
Now, speaking of singles, so that's kind of the picture of the team play. we're in a unique. This is the first time I believe this has happened at Nationals. So Collegiate Nationals is doing their inaugural match play championship.
Yeah.
So there will be a collegiate disc golf match play champion. It's being ran somewhat separate from the event, but what the byproduct of that is the top 64 ranked single individual players had their singles round for the tournament today.
They were playing their first singles round, and it was in order to seed themselves for this match play.
But their scores count.
Right. Yeah.
So what it essentially did is a lot of teams only had one single score out there. A lot of teams had 0. Some teams had 2. Some very good teams had 2. So that 2 will play today, 2 will play tomorrow. NC State, one of the few teams that had all 4 playing today.
Yeah.
Now, what that does is this afternoon, conditions, weather-wise, sun-wise, perfect. Wind was up.
Yeah.
It was windy. It was still very scoreable. Noah Free from Missouri put up the hot round at 10 under, singles round, scorcher of a round.
So good.
We had Davis York from Georgia, 9 under, Benjamin Zorn from Ferris State, 8 under, and then there's a big tie, three-way tie at 6 under between Clayton Lewis from Liberty, Colin Thompson from Illinois State, and Marcus Cathy from Arizona. But what's interesting about this is it's tough to know if today was a scoring day, if today was where the line's going to be set, or if tomorrow, because tomorrow a lot of them, there's some morning tee times.
Yeah.
There are some afternoon tee times. It looks like the rain's going to be coming in as of right now, closer to that 3-4 o'clock range.
Right.
So there's going to be players that get out there in the morning, very calm conditions, very scoreable conditions. But then it's going to shift in the afternoon. I was talking to some of the guys from Liberty, actually, because Liberty's one of the team that split 2-2.
Mm-hmm.
And I was saying, how do y'all feel about this? Like, where do you sit? I was talking to one of the guys playing tomorrow. He was loving himself. He was loving that he's playing tomorrow. He's loving his tee time there, because he was saying, like, look, I'm not comfortable in the wind. If it's the wind tomorrow, as of now, is supposed to be down. We're talking 1-2 mile an hour. After this afternoon, it was 10-12 mile an hour.
Yeah.
So drastically different wind day, and he was saying, I'd rather be playing in a little wind and a little rain than a lot of wind.
Well, and the nature of these courses is you have a lot of pins that are one of like really 4 things, I guess, or you have a lot of pins that are tucked against like creeks with drop offs. You have a lot of elevated pins. You have a lot of pins on slopes, and then you have a lot of pins that just have OB lines nearby. Mm-hmm. So when you have the wind is up, there are so many holes on these courses that putting and upshots are so difficult, and there's so much more thought that has to go into it. It also makes some of the reachable par 4s or par 5s out here not reachable if you get a headwind. So it's certainly a big factor. I mean, from what I saw out there today, there was quite a few holes that would be normally very easy, but when that wind picked up, all of a sudden, like, you know, you're not going to attack that shot where the basket is right next to a creek when there's a headwind. Like, it really changed a lot of people's game plan. I saw a lot of people throwing safer shots than normal. So that'll be something to look at. It's always, especially being in the mountains where we are, the
weather, tomorrow could end up being a perfect day.
Yeah, or like a storm could blow.
Tomorrow could also end up being the worst day possible to play.
It's the randomness.
But that is what's interesting is typically, at least singles, like, it's going to be everyone's doing the same thing. Because there were some rounds where there were some times when we were playing 2 singles rounds that like half was playing one course one day and then we were flipping. So you had like morning, afternoon. Yeah. But you're playing 2 different courses, but half your team was doing it, right? Half and half, and half of every team was doing it. With this, there's some schools out there that are fielding no one. I think Houghton only had 1 player playing today, I'm pretty sure. Now, I will say, if you're looking at this leaderboard right now, singles play such a big factor. Houghton in the lead, it's great. It's good. It's going to be very tough for them to hold on to that after singles. Yeah. After that round 2 score is posted. Because, I mean, some of these teams that are just a little bit farther down,
there's some teams that are super deep.
Very balanced teams. Yeah. Because realistically, it's almost better to be 950 across the board than to be 1,000 with an 800.
That's what I'm saying is, like, in singles, it's way more about your bottom guy's score than your top guy's score. Like, it's great and all if your top guy does really awesome, but almost always what hurts a team the most is they'll have their worst player or just their player who has the worst week just kicks them out. I've seen it time and time again.
Now, here's what I'll say. I'm just kind of scrolling down the single scores right now, seeing if I can pick out where some teams are. I believe Missouri only had 2 players playing today. Yeah. I don't have a way to fact check that right now, but I'm pretty sure they only had 2, both in the top 11. Right now they have 1 at 4 under, 1 at 10 under.
That's a very good start.
average of 7 under for those.
But like that's a great start. But if one guy goes out and shoots 8 over, then like
you have a lot more confidence going into tomorrow if your average is sitting at 7 under right now.
It's definitely great
because I'm like, hey, if I shoot 1 over, like, well, it's all good. My homie already just shot 10 under.
Yeah.
Versus you're going out there and you're like, oh boy, I hope I'm the worst score at 1 over.
Right.
So Missouri, I think they're in a solid spot. Anyone with the name up top, Liberty, I know Clayton Lewis had himself a day. He played very well. I know Jonah struggled a little bit.
Yeah.
That's kind of typical of teams. If their other two can find their way in between both of them, they'll be fine.
It's tough to say.
Like, NC State, I want to kind of scroll through and look at them because NC State, again, they had their round 2's done. Their entire team already played today. Looks like they already know where they're at, realistically. They got a 4 under, a 3 under. I have to scroll a little bit of 1 under. So that's as long as their fourth guy didn't do something criminal, which I might have to go down to the over par section.
I'm trying to like calculate like what, with the scores that are in so far, like, I mean, because like what are some of the lower end scores right now?
So the lower end gets ugly.
There are people way
that's
be a
DNF.
Like,
we got some people like 23 over, 12 over.
Yeah. So
the 12 over player, I won't call him out. Very solid player. We've seen him.
Yeah.
We've beat him by a technicality in a bogey bro battle.
Yeah, there's some legit, like, that's what I'm saying. I think based on, obviously hot round being 10 under, but then there being some really big numbers, I feel like if your team at Boulders comes in singles,
I think 3-4 under would be very solid average.
Probably the better teams will get close to double digits. They'll sniff it, I would think. It just depends on if you can have 2 guys.
Oh, I missed really one. All of NC State was under. So NC State went 4-3-3-1.
Yeah, I was say
so
double
7,
digits.
10,
I think is
11. So that would be about that. That'd be about a 3 under mark.
Yeah.
For NC State, I think that's going to be a very solid score. Now, it'll be very tough tomorrow. The whole wrap-up show for the Division I, we'll know all the single scores. It'll be interesting to see. Right now, it feels like a big talking point. It'll be interesting to see, was today the scoring day? Did NC State just get handed a very favorable hand? Or is tomorrow the scoring day and NC State just got screwed a little bit?
Yeah, I just realized I was saying double digits because I was thinking about the old scoring system. You are much more accurate at 3 or 4.
Average.
It's average now. I would agree then 3 or 4. The average does change a lot.
Yeah. So that's kind of the men's D1 team side. I think we'll know a lot more tomorrow. The tournament really starts tomorrow. Today, it always is like this. Your first doubles round is almost a warm up for the event,
right?
Because again, you can't win it day one. You can definitely lose it.
Yeah.
Most of the top teams, if not all the top teams, they didn't lose it today.
Yeah.
So everyone's in the hunt going into tomorrow. That's when things will really start getting electric.
Yeah. Hopefully,
as it comes down the stretch.
Hopefully, we'll see 8 to 10 teams that are all within 5 strokes going into doubles. That'd be great.
I think these courses set up for it. Playing Boulders twice.
Yeah.
The Gorge, there's a lot of separation, but I feel like after coming out of Boulders, we're going to have it's going to be a rat race at the top.
Yeah, I would think so.
Now, the women's D1 team, they played their doubles today. I don't believe they had the same singles things going on. They were playing their doubles at the River Run course, which is an easier course, but it's got some teeth.
It's sneaky. So I was at River Run most of the day today, and what I'll say, the key to that course was scoring early because literally holes, hole 1, 2, and 3, incredibly easy holes. 4, somewhat tricky, but very gettable. You don't really see a whole lot of teeth. 5 is a double mando hole, but it's not super difficult. It's really like hole 8. There's a water hole that's kind of tough. There's a par 4 that entices some people, but that front 9 is very scoreable. You should be in doubles. You'd like to see 4 to 5 under, for sure. Mm-hmm. But then you get to the back 9 of the course, and all of a sudden it starts to get a little frustrating. You kind of go across a bridge to the other side of the property a little bit, and you play a few holes that are just shaped in a way, or they have obstacles near the basket. There's 2 that, one's surrounded by bushes, one's in a spider tree, to where it's just hard to get a birdie putt. There's a few tough OB shots. There's some longer holes in the back. All of a sudden, the back 9, in doubles, I would say 1 to 2 under isn't bad at all. So it definitely, even though there's not a whole lot of length on that course, there's a lot of OB, and there's plenty of places to take big numbers because there's a lot of opportunities to run putts out of bounds so many times.
Well, when we were looking at the women's scores as it was going on, what seemed to be happening was whatever score you got on the front nine was about the score you got.
Then that's the back nine's such a
the
fight.
team that really wasn't true. I believe it was Southern Arkansas was even through 10 and finished 5 under.
I wish I could have seen that round because that's absolutely insane. Like that. Where were the birdies? Like
they found them.
They must have they must have had a pair that was attacking.
There are some really late down the stretch that are very gettable,
but
when
the wind was kicking up, that's the problem. Is like now in doubles, it's obviously different. You get that, you get a chance to run a little more aggressively and
we're talking different doubles here. Women's division is 2 players. They just play normal best shots. So you get hot, you stay hot. There's no cool off period where your one partners are very hot and the other partners are just ice cold.
Well, they certainly got hot on the back because that's great. I mean they must have really had it go.
Now what's interesting here? So the women's division, they don't allow this in the men's D1 at least, but the women's division, this has kind of always been a rule where there's some schools that can only field like one woman's player. They'll allow them to kind of form a mixed team. Previous years, they don't allow mixed teams. Like if a mixed team won it all, whoever came in second, that's the school that wins the national title. Previous years. I don't know if that's still true this year. We do have a mixed team in the lead after round 1. So they're at 6 under par, followed up by Oklahoma State and Southern Arkansas, both at 5 under. Then we have BYU and Liberty rounding out the top 5, both at 3 under. A surprise here, Pellissippi State coming in as the number 1 women's team in the country, 4 over par, 10 strokes back.
Crazy, yeah.
Not what was expected.
Not at all.
There was a lot of good teams out there. I was kind of floating around. I saw some great shots. I believe it was Missouri. Do you remember hole 3? I believe it's 4. That like tight wooded tunnel shot.
Yeah.
I mean, they ended up. I think they ended up missing the putt high, but they put it to like 35 feet, pured it with like a flex shot.
Tough hole.
It was incredible. They were the closest on there was a group of 3 teams, closest by about 50 feet. It was a pretty incredible shot.
Yeah,
but
that was a sneaky hole.
Liberty went for I believe it's 2 holes later. It's like a 370 island over the water.
The bridge one?
The one where we both threw in the middle of that pond.
One. Okay, so that was
they went for that green. Everyone else was like letting it. People were tapping out on the green. They were throwing their layup shots like smart people.
A lot of the men's players were just chucking it down there, laying it up. Yeah.
Julia, I believe it was for Liberty. She ended up being safe. She didn't get all the way there. She turned it over a little early, but there were some impressive shots being thrown out there. Again, similar thing. Singles is going to be what really separates us out a little bit more. Yeah. But right now, it's all jumbled up. I would say Pellissippi, they're in a tough spot. It's a 10-stroke deficit after the first round. It's not impossible.
Yeah, not at all.
Very hard.
Yeah,
is the spot they're in.
They certainly dug a hole. It is cool to see, like, with there being so many more schools involved these days that, like, I mean, back when we played, it was very likely for teams to jump out ahead. There were just like
there were sometimes like 10-stroke leads.
Right. There were just
doubles. Some
clubs that were just further into this, but it's gotten to the point now where like
there's a lot of solid teams.
You just never know who can sneak up and win.
So that's going to be interesting to keep an eye on as well. I'm gonna pull up the schedule here to kind of give you a glimpse at what you're going to be looking at tomorrow. There's also the women's coverage. I believe they were covering that Carter 3 I was talking about, which I had Pellissippi, Missouri's A team, and I don't remember the third team that was on that card. It was a blue team. I never saw their logo, I don't believe.
The Turbo Putt? Team had the Turbo Putt? Okay.
It was not the Turbo Putt team. That team, I didn't see anything else. I just walked
just
up.
The lefty Turbo Putt?
I almost didn't catch it. I walked up. Camera, hit record. I was aimed at the ground. I saw her about to throw, and she didn't really even line it up. She just walked up, holding the putter, and then just turboed. And I got the camera up right at the right time. Hit a sick turbo putt on that spider tree.
Also, I think we heard somebody threw
in from the drop
zone on 18. So shout out to whoever that was.
That might mean nothing to people listening right now. So tomorrow, Thursday, the men's D1 singles match play for the people who were in the seating thing today. We'll be happening at the Gorge all morning long. We'll try to get some coverage of that.
Yeah, it's an exhibition.
It's an exhibition. It'll be fun to see. But the big thing tomorrow is the rest of the field will be playing the singles tee times at Boulder. So that's big. And then it goes back-to-back doubles at the Gorge to finish it out. for men. So tomorrow, singles tee time. That'll really separate it out. Women tomorrow, they're going to be playing singles out at River Run. They all have early tee times. Mm-hmm. So weather probably isn't going to be too big of a factor. And what's electric about tomorrow, actually, I just realized this, the women's single final 13 happens. So there will actually be the individual national champ for the women's D1 will be crowned tomorrow.
Heck yeah.
Now, Trevor, I didn't get to watch any of this. You watched a little D3 action.
I did.
Out there today as well.
Saw a little D3 action
and
today.
D2 played doubles at the Gorge. So we can get a little preview of some scores out there. Tell us about the D3 action you saw going on.
I followed my brother's card around today. First thing I would just say is the level of in college disc golf, you can field multiple teams, get multiple bids, and for 3 teams deep essentially on these respective schools, like these kids were pretty good. Like it's a remarkable, when we were playing just a few years ago, it wasn't that long ago, a lot of times your third team deep sometimes would literally be like kids who had just started playing that year, certainly by the time you got to the 4th team deep, because there's some schools have multiple teams playing in D3. I got to see a good bit of the River Run course, some pretty good action. I think the big story of the day out there was a lot of nerves. I got to see, it was kind of fun getting back out there and seeing
it's so fun to be back on the ground.
Seeing these college kids were this is their event. This is what they work towards all year. It's a major. And you just saw so many putts that are just terrifying. So many emotions flying around. Every shot was so important because you kind of become numb to serious tournament golf when you do what we do, and we kind of just mess around a lot. But it's so different. Because I got to caddy today a little bit, and it's so different when you're stepping up to an 80-foot upshot, a jump putt upshot, and you're talking through it with yourself. Okay, now let me make sure I get this angle, match the hill, watch the wind. There's so much more thought that goes into it, and the stakes are so much higher. So yeah, it was electric being out there, and what's really other thing that was really cool is, I was following one of the D3 cards, and as the D1 schools and D2 schools are wrapping up, they were coming immediately over to walk with their teammates and watch them and support them.
That was what was
playing.
happening on the women's D1 as well.
That's one of the coolest things about college disc golf that you'll witness
it's
is
team.
the team camaraderie and team support. Everybody just loves, they do not leave the course or go just sit around somewhere. They go straight to follow their teammates and support them. And that's honestly
that's what makes
the
the singles finals is electric.
Oh, so many people.
Because basically, typically 1, maybe 2 guys from your team makes the cut to the mean 13, the final 13, whatever you want to call it. And so what ends up is that lead card, that few cards, their entire school's there. So you got 4 players, each representing a different school typically, and then each of them are backed by 10 to 15 people. So you're guaranteed before there's any additional gallery, 60 people to play in front of. Yeah. It's an electric atmosphere. Now, D2 played the Gorge, the course we were talking about, the separation, a little bit more out there. So this will give us a little taste of some scores.
Yeah.
So D2, the leaders out there right now is Wisconsin Platteville, 7 under par.
Very respectable
score. Iowa State put up a 6 under. Let me scroll down a little bit. Clemson, North Alabama, both tied with 5 unders. So 7-6-5. If we get down to outside the top 10, Liberty sitting at 13th, happened to be the school I scrolled to, 2 under. So there's a separation a little more. Okay. 10 teams separated by 5 strokes.
I would think
whereas on the Boulder, to get outside the top 10, are you kidding me? I just backed all the way out of it. To get outside the top 10, we have 16, and then there's a massive tie there at 12.
Yeah.
So you know what? Pretty similar.
I think that those scores, D2 teams are pretty legit. I would think that, you're going to see a similar parity with the D1 teams, playing the Gorge. I would think that, Hot will come in a bit better, probably 11-12, like I was saying, but you will certainly see teams shoot around par.
Easily.
There's just so many ways to throw out of balance, and it can be demoralizing because one thing about the Gorge course that, we noticed is there is not a single hole that it's easy birdie, let off the brakes. There's so many par 4s. It's so long. OB every time. There is a lot of opportunities. And in doubles, just a bogey is just I mean, it's like getting shot. Like your whole round, the air just deflates. Because in doubles, a par pretty much is like a bogey. Like you don't even really want to be taking pars unless there's only certain holes that you are okay with par. So you take a bogey, and when there's OB involved, like all of a sudden taking a bogey in doubles becomes a very realistic thing.
Yeah. All right. Well, there you have it. That's day one. Great day of golf out there. If you're not following along with us on Instagram, we're putting a lot of shots up there, both on the reels and on our stories of just kind of what's going on throughout the day as things are happening. We also plan to do a short recap each day on Instagram as well, but then this podcast each night minus the finals, because final recap will be happening on the normal Grip Locked on Monday. Hopefully give you a little glimpse into College Disc Golf National Championship down here. It's electric. If you're interested, I know some people, this is the first you're hearing of college disc golf is this week. Check out the coverage as it comes out on the PDGA or Central Coast in Sky Heiser or PDGA. Not positive what channel it's going to be on. Again, we'll share the link as soon as we have it out there, but you're going to want to watch it. I can guarantee you this first card with Emporia State, you're going to see an incredible round, 14 under par at Boulders. It was electric the way they did it. And you're going to see a respectable round from NC State at 9 under. Either one of those teams could easily walk away national champs the end of this week. So great card to film to start. Singles going to be electric. We'll know a lot more about where teams are standing after the singles round is finalized tomorrow. So you're going to come back, get that info after tomorrow's round. You'll have a better picture of what's going on out there. But we'll talk to you again tomorrow.